Nick Whalen here from RotoWire. We're talking some fantasy basketball. I know it's still very, very early in the NBA season, but I'm going to give you 5 players I'm already panicking about on my fantasy basketball teams. Number 1, it's got to be Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. And if you watched any of my videos or listened to our podcast leading up to the year, you know I went back and forth on Markkanen all off season, ended up mostly staying away, but of course, did land him on one of my most important teams. It was an auction, got a good price on him, so I didn't feel terrible about it. But look, we're just over a week into the season, and I'm already regretting it. Markkanen was great on opening night, 35 points, 9 boards, 4 threes, 13 of 14 at the line, exactly what you're hoping to get from Markkanen, but he's really struggled over the Jazz last 2 games. He was off to a slow start against the Kings. Then he went out with a back issue. Hard to say right now, but the back issue does seem relatively minor, but really that's not even why I'm concerned. The primary issue right now is much the same as last season. The Utah Jazz are just not a very good basketball team. They've already been blown out twice. They're dead last in the NBA in scoring. They're dead last in the NBA in offensive rating. Not a ton of reliable teammates on that roster to put Markkanen in good positions. Short term, once this back injury passes, I think he's going to be fine. But Utah is not even close to looking the part of a playoff contender in the Western Conference, and there could be some serious shutdown risk for Markkanen later in the season. In the one team that I have Markkanen, I'm already dreaming up some trade offers to unload him in the near future. Number 2, we're staying in the Western Conference. Zach Edey of the Memphis Grizzlies. Look, we have to be concerned about Edey right now. You don't want to panic. You don't want to overreact. This video is called Players That I'm Panicking On. So maybe we are panicking, but I thought he looked great in the preseason. I love the way the Grizzlies were using him. I love the aggressiveness on offense. It's been a complete reversal since the regular season started. He fouled out in 15 minutes on opening night. He picked up 8 fouls in 36 combined minutes over the next 2 games. And even when he hasn't been in foul trouble, he's having trouble staying on the court for long stretches. Only played 14 minutes in the Grizzlies' recent win over the Chicago Bulls. You know, there are certain matchups where he's just going to be unplayable early on. He's going to get played off the court by some of these big men who can space out to the 3-point line. We're going to have to exercise patience with Edey, really with all the rookies in this 2024 class, but this is not the start I thought Zach Edey would get off to. I'm not dropping him after 1 week. He's firmly parked on the bench. I will say that, but I'm not dropping him. We did see his ADP, however, shoot up considerably before the season started. He went in the early 60s in a couple drafts that I was in just before opening night. If I got him in that range, I'm already panicking about his chances to meet or certainly exceed that acquisition cost. Another big man I'm concerned about, Jonas Valanciunas of the Washington Wizards. And if you drafted Valanciunas, you knew what you were signing up for, which is investing in a player on the Washington Wizards, a team that typically does not operate by normal logic. Valanciunas was coming off the bench to begin the year. His minutes have been capped in the low 20s so far. He's still been fine in terms of points and rebounds per minute. But the idea of drafting Valanciunas was that he would be the steady veteran force on this young Wizards team. And the opportunities just have not been there quite yet. You know, if he can get to even 24, 25 minutes a night, he could be a lower end double-double threat, but he's off to a rough start as far as that goes. It's really hard not to look back at the preseason ADP numbers and feel like, maybe Valanciunas and Ivica Zubac should have been swapped. Obviously, you'd rather have one over the other at this point. So Valanciunas, we'll see how it goes over the next couple of weeks, but not encouraged by what we've seen so far in Washington. Next on the list, Jonathan Kuminga of the Golden State Warriors. Warriors are off to a good start. I'm not going to question what Steve Kerr's doing with their rotations, but what I do know is it's potentially disastrous for us from a fantasy perspective. Steve Kerr is playing 10, 11, 12 guys a night, giving those guys real minutes. I mean, this is the deepest rotation in the NBA right now. And Steve Kerr said he wants to stick with that. So we'll see how long he's able to keep that up. But it's not helping Kuminga, whose minutes have been down so far. You know, we thought this might be the big breakout year for him. Essentially the number 2 option without Klay Thompson now. And Steph Curry's already battling an ankle injury. Instead, you know, Kuminga saw limited minutes early on. He came off the bench in the first game Steph Curry missed, ended up having a decent game. But I think it's already clear that there is some sort of disconnect between Kuminga and Steve Kerr. And, you know, they've had their squabbles about his role on this team in the past. I'm not sure much has changed there. I do think this could be a buy low opportunity on Kuminga. Nothing has really changed in terms of the team context. He's still the guy that they're going to need to step up eventually if they want to be a playoff team. But the playing time patterns have not been encouraging so far. And as long as Steve Kerr sticks to his guns with this ultra deep rotation, it's going to hurt everybody on that Warriors roster, especially Jonathan Kuminga. For the 5th and final player on our list, we're going back to the Utah Jazz, Keyonte George, another Jazz player who shares some of those same concerns as Markkanen. But the issue with George is he's been a part of the problem in Utah so far. He's shooting under 30% from the field in the early going, really struggling from beyond the arc, despite taking 7 or 8 threes a night. He has given you assists, which is nice, but the steals haven't really been there. He's not really doing much as a rebounder either. If you're in a points league, I think you probably waited out with Keyonte George. The minutes are going to be there. We know that. That's the saving grace here. But in category leagues, he's been nothing short of a disaster so far. He's crushing your field goal percentage. He's not giving you the counting stats to make it up. It's still very early. We need to keep that in mind. Not everyone's going to hit the ground running. George is still a young player just going into his second year, but he was on that short list of later round breakout candidates, and you're still rolling him out there in your fantasy league starting lineup. You need that efficiency to start coming around in the very near future. Those are the 5 players I'm already concerned about just a week into the NBA season. Let us know who's killing your fantasy teams. Put it in the comments below. We always love hearing from you. Make sure you check out rotowire.com/try, TRY. That'll give you free access to all of our tools, all of our stats, all of our articles over on rotowire.com. And look, if you're still watching this video at this point, please subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball channel. Give the video a like. Always appreciate that.